Send home Joe Wait, send home Joy Grant. That's what the unions had to say about the FinSec and the governor of the central bank. And they say they will only agree to an increment freeze if government trims its own fat. Also, it used to be the COVID unit. Tonight, we'll take you inside the COVID-free unit at the KHMH, and you'll hear the back and forth over Gill nets between the Ministry of the Blue Economy and Oceana. We've got details of these and other stories in our newscast for tonight, Wednesday, March 17, 2021. Good evening. With your news, I'm Indira Craig.
El contagio de la COVID-19 requiere que los negocios de todos los tamaños y sectores den máxima prioridad a la seguridad y salud en el trabajo. Los gerentes y empleados deben realizar evaluaciones de riesgos para identificar áreas y procedimientos que ponen en peligro las vidas y los negocios. 6 pasos para crear un lugar de trabajo seguro y saludable. 1. Identificar posibles fuentes de transmisión de virus. 2. Determinar quién podría estar infectado y cómo podría infectarse. 3. Discutir y decidir las medidas de prevención y control. 4. Implementar, comunicar y testear medidas. 5. Asegurar que el equipamiento de protección es adecuado para cada situación. 6. Mantener registros, revisar medidas y actualizarlas cuando sea necesario.
We must all do our part to slow the spread. A safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace.
Para obtener más información, visite www.covid19.bz. Un mensaje de la Cámara de Comercio e Industria de Belice y el Congreso Nacional de Sindicatos de Belice, en colaboración con la Organización Internacional del Trabajo.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, 2 ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Start your year with a win with Bellikin and its new promotion, Papa Stopper. Yes, sir. Every time you pop one stopper off our Bellikin, make sure you check under the crown. If you see one bottle shape, you win one free Bellikin. If you see one ball, you win $20. If you see one star, you win $100. And once you see one diamond, you win $1,000. Sure, Bellikin again, you know. Papa Stopper. When you pop a stopper off a Bellikin, check to see if you're a winner. You can collect your free beer or $20 cash prize at the store nearest to you. If you win $100 or $1,000, redeem your prize at the nearest B&B sales center.
Promotion is valid until Saturday, March 27th or while supplies last.
Papa Stopper!
Bellikin, the beer of Belize.
Over 3 decades ago, a Belizean company with roots in Toledo realized that Belizeans were paying far too much for life-saving oxygen. This concerned them greatly, and they decided to do something about it. Although Fabregas Belize Limited was born decades ago, that founding spirit of service to the Belizean people has not only been retained, but cemented into the fabric of how the company does business. Right before the worldwide pandemic began, Fabregas Belize Limited invested significant resources in improved storage and logistics for our country's life-saving oxygen. At the company's own expense, COVID-19 units in 2 of the 4 regions of the country received state-of-the-art specialized oxygen distribution infrastructure for in-hospital and direct-to-bedside oxygen provision. Today, our nation's premier tertiary referral hospital, the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital in Belize City, is equipped with an ample, modern and suitable oxygen distribution system for its most pressing needs, even at the height of hospitalization due to the COVID-19. This investment in Belize's preparedness has ensured that throughout 2020 and now in 2021, Belize has backup reserves of approximately 300% more than the national need for life-saving medical oxygen. This important investment in infrastructure and technology is backed by a proud all-Belizean management and staff. Continuous training and adherence to international standards means that Fabregas stands ready to deliver the best products and service to its customers. So regardless of how Fabregas serves our nation, whether it's through providing the gases, technology and products that build Belize, or whether we serve by always ensuring that you, your loved ones and every Belizean home or in a hospital always has access to life-saving oxygen, Fabregas has got your back. And together, we look forward to rebuilding this nation in a post-pandemic world. Fabregas Belize Limited, we got your back.
You've worked hard your whole life building your future, your family, your business, your home. And when you aren't around to safeguard your most beloved assets, you are at ease because you know they are protected by RF&G Insurance. For over 50 years, RF&G has been making sure business owners get back to work after an accident, and families get back into their homes quickly after a natural disaster. At RF&G, it's you who matters most. Visit us today and learn why it pays to get it right. RF&G Insurance, a Rowe Group company.
Preventing the spread of COVID-19 at work requires that businesses of all sizes and sectors put safety and health first. Managers and employees should conduct risk assessments to identify critical areas and procedures that put lives and businesses in danger. Here are 6 tips for creating a safe and healthy working environment. 1. Identify potential sources of virus transmission. 2. Determine who might be infected and how. 3. Discuss and decide prevention and control measures. 4. Make sure the safety equipment being used is right for the situation. 5. Implement, communicate, and test measures. 6. Keep records, review measures, and update when necessary.
We must all do our part to slow the spread. A safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace.
For more information, visit www.covid19.bz. A message from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the National Trade Union Congress of Belize in collaboration with the International Labor Organization.
Join us on Wednesday night on Uncut when our guests will be Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, Chris Coy, and the leaders of the 3 major unions, the BNTU, the PSU, and the APSSM. Will they accept a wage cut or will they go on strike?
Once again, it's the unions versus a government caught in a budgetary bind. By now, you know the terms all too well. Government has to save $80 million to cover a part of its $500 million deficit. They want the teachers and public officers to take a 10% pay cut and an increment freeze, which would produce that $80 million. The PSU, BNTU, and the APSSM have balked at that request, saying they might be willing to consider the increment freeze, but nothing more. That's only $20 million, and they have sent lengthy counter proposals to government suggesting how they could realize the other savings. But while that's on paper, on the ground, the battle is pitched, and today the joint unions came out swinging with a 3-hour-long press conference. From the outset of the event, the union leaders reiterated that any agreement to an increment freeze must be reciprocated by government, enhancing its fiscal responsibility and transparency. And to help GO be along that path, the unions provided some recommendations that they could start with. These include a purging of phantom government workers, a spending limit on new government vehicles, and cutting off ministerial allowances.
As joint unions, we have recommended in following up to what Brother Luke just said, to the finalization of the job classification exercise, because that in fact will then put a true picture on who the public officers are, rationalize where they are, all the anomalies that have been created in terms of salaries, the anomalies as it relates to an inaccurate staff list, deal with weeding out who does not belong where, and wherever the excess is, and realigning how public officers are placed, and therefore we can then get a true picture to have a proper examination of the wage bill.
We decided that the ministers, CEOs, HODs, and other senior government officials would be allowed to purchase their vehicles, or the vehicles that they want to drive. For ministers and ministers of state, they would get an advance to purchase their vehicle in the amount of $100,000 maximum. For chief executive officers, they would get $75,000 maximum to purchase their vehicles. And for heads of departments and senior government officials, they would get $60,000 maximum in order to purchase their vehicle that they want to drive. Since the vehicles will become the property of these individuals, they will also be responsible for the licensing of these vehicles, the insuring of these vehicles, and of course the general maintenance of these vehicles. In the same line with regards to vehicles, we want to implement existing policies as it relates to the usage of the government vehicles for other public officers that are below the rank of the heads of departments or senior and other senior government officials and ministers, of course, where they will need to park all their government vehicles by 5:15 p.m. every day. And they would have to park them at specific, secured, identified parking areas countrywide. Any vehicle that is en route back to their base after 5:15 p.m. must be in possession of a pass.
At this point in time, there is no need for any entertainment allowance. You can't entertain anybody right now. The gatherings are limited. Nobody coming from anywhere right now that we would have to be entertaining them. So we are proposing, and we are seriously and we are adamant about this, that our ministers should give up their entertainment allowance as well as their telephone allowance.
Henry estimated savings of $4 to $5 million for the changes made to vehicles for senior officials and $2 million for vehicles used by other officers. He added that those officers caught driving vehicles after 5:15 p.m. would need to either present a pass or have a valid excuse, such as engine failure. And while these cost-cutting measures are not exactly new ideas, the unions conceded that they have been recommending them to the government for some time, and if they had been heeded then, he feels the country would not be in this financial position. But those cost-saving measures weren't the only recommendations made by the unions. They also want the government to send home the FinSec. According to the first vice president of the PSU, the financial secretary, Joseph Waite, had a mandate to ensure that the government was spending in a transparent way. 10 years ago, he was tasked with publishing reports that would detail GOB's expenditure and would allow for the public to closely monitor it to ensure that we would not end up in a devastating financial situation. Now, the unions say it's time to hold those with financial responsibility accountable.
The joint unions received a very strong mandate that we are to call for the removal of the financial secretary and his accompanying staff, especially those that are over the age of 55. Why the financial secretary? In 2010, we knew we had a problem. We knew we had a problem under the Musa administration that ended in 28. And the IDB came in to assist us, and that's why they passed SI 95 of 2010, the fiscal transparency and responsibility regulations of 2010. That regulation would have been given us, the objective of that regulation was to force the financial secretary to give us a snapshot of government fiscal strategy and government fiscal position twice a year. So we were to have been receiving a fiscal outlook mid-year review report and a final budget outcome report. Detailed in that report would have been government expenses, government revenues, government assets, government liabilities, and also the assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenses of every single statutory body out there that government is giving money to, and we don't know how they're performing. We have no clue how most of these revenue-generating statutory bodies are performing. We don't see the publication of any financial statements, similar to us not seeing any where the government finances is concerned. I think the last statements for the government were 2014. So it is our view that the financial secretary has breached, not breached, but he's in violation of the SI, of the law, similar to the former Prime Minister, and he needs to be held accountable.
According to Flowers, these reports were to be gazetted and published on a website for the public to scrutinize. But it doesn't just stop at the FinSec. The unions are also looking to get rid of the Auditor General and the Governor of the Central Bank. Flowers explained that their lack of responsibility has also added to the predicament that Belize finds itself in.
Replacement of the Auditor General and the Governor of the Central Bank upon agreed separation or expiration of contract. And I received a message this morning, why would you call for the removal of the Auditor General? And my response was, when last have you seen an audit report coming out of the Lands Department, which from 2008, when the Barrow administration took over, we've been hearing has been the hottest bed of corruption. Why hasn't the Auditor General gone to the Lands Department since 2008 when the fire sale away properties were discovered under the previous administration to identify the leakages and to continue to monitor that department? We talk about ghost workers on the payroll. Who is auditing the government staff list? Who is auditing the government's payroll? I can tell you, we were provided with March 11 staff list. The FinSec did give us a staff list, but we like sleep with one eye. So we start ask questions and ask for assistance. And I can tell you that the staff lists are different. You have dead people, not only on government pension, but dead people that collect salary every 15th and ending. That's the role of the Auditor General. We believe that better competence is out there where the central bank government is concerned. And so we're asking, look, not to get competent people in place, man. This cronyism that resulted in that appointment, because we respect, of course, the governor, but we don't believe that she has the kind of experience and competence to make fiscal and monetary policies for this country.
Flowers said that an audit of the tax department is also necessary. He also added the accountant general to the list of those who have not fulfilled their duties. But their list of suggestions did not end there. They also made declarations that they believe would ensure good governance. President of the NTUCB, Luis Luke Martinez, explained that there needs to be legislation in place to crack down on corruption, so the unions put forward 3 suggestions that they hope will be realized in the near future.
One of our first declarations is to develop and pass the whistleblowers legislation in accordance with Article 33 of UNCAP, protection of reporting persons. And we expect that that be done within a 3 to 6 months period. We know that the whistleblowers provide a voice to expose corruption, and so we definitely want to see that happen. Our second declaration is to see that they develop and pass the illicit enrichment laws. Again, we've listened to the news. It has almost become a daily activity where public officials, and this is not limited to the politicians, we have some public officers who are not saints, right? And so some of us cannot show, based on our salaries, how we get these riches. Our third declaration, of course, again, has to do with the development and the passage of the assets recovery law. And that too, we'd want to see that done in the next 3 to 6 months. We cannot sit down and continue to watch these things happen. And to stop it, the legislations are required.
And while the recommendations from the unions would include plenty of sacrifice from the government, they insist that it's necessary, especially since they have also sacrificed during this pandemic. That's been a sore point ever since PM Briceño suggested that they had not sacrificed like so many others across society because their paychecks remained intact. And while they have not gotten salary cuts, PSU President Gerald Henry was emphatic when he said that public officers do not stop working. And fending off those widespread reservations about a lack of industry in the public sector, Henry says they work hard for what they earn, harder even than some of their bosses.
You have to recall that public officers never stopped working. During the elections, we were out there during the pandemic. In fact, I can tell you that one of my sisters, PSU sisters, had a huge swollen knee because she had injured her knee about a week before the election. She could have easily taken the route and presented a doctor paper. She didn't do that. She went and she conducted those elections with her knee on a chair with a pillow on it. Right? So we never did stop working during the election. And I got a call from someone, I don't even know the person who actually is in the private sector. And the person told me, Mr. Henry, if we had a union, we would not have accepted those cuts. The reason why we had to accept, we had no one to defend us. No one to defend us, we were on our own. I get calls from certain people in the media who have told me the very same thing. They would want to belong to a union as well. They wouldn't want to have a union. They don't. So we are the ones who are in the trenches. We are the ones who take the lick. We conducted 2 elections, brother. 2 elections during COVID. without any complaints. We have policemen, we have BDF, and remember all those storms that were taking place, we have Coast Guards. All the floods that were out there, NEMA officials were out there. So, me personally, I get extremely upset when I hear that, oh, public officers don't want to take a cut. No, we are not saying that. We are saying that after you trim the fat everywhere else, then come and talk to me. I will listen at that time. But for now, you trim your fat first. Don't come and say you will only give up 10% of your salary, but keep all the perks. And you don't do half the work that we do. You don't have the slightest idea how to do my work. We keep this country running. They could leave, you know. They leave, they change every time. Who stays? We are the ones who keep this country running, not them.
But despite the work they've put in and despite how long they've been making cost-cutting recommendations to the government, the reality is that GOB needs to save $80 million and now. And while cracking down on collecting taxes to generate more revenue and limiting the amount spent on vehicles would help, it's not a short-term solution, which is what the government has to have. But even this won't persuade the unions to take the salary cuts lying down. According to the president of the APSSM, the government's need for a quick and easy solution should not be their problem because they have been doing their part even before elections to try and prevent this very same situation. And while Sharon Fraser conceded that now it is everyone's problem, she said that the government needs to get its priorities straight before cutting salaries.
We as unions have always told this government, the government before that, that in fact we are willing to do our part in ensuring that in fact there's fiscal responsibility and that all the rules and regulations surrounding that is adhered to. It is not, I wanted my initial response in my mind when you were saying that was, how is that our problem in terms of time? But yes, it is our problem because we are now being faced and being pushed against the wall in coming up with fix. As I have said before, I never run for government. I'm a public officer going on 33 years and I've done my part. I've done what I needed to have done and I'm still prepared to continue doing what I need to do. It is a sad state of affairs that we are where we are now, but we're prepared to face it head on. But we need accountability, we need transparency, we need responsible response. It cannot be that we're here putting our good faith, our good foot, our responsible behavior, and in fact, persons who are around the table with us or across the table from us are making very disrespectful statements about the process. We know that there is a time crunch, but they need to decide what is in the best interest of Belize and the people of Belize at this time. Pushing for their time limit or pushing for a responsible solution to deal with the financial mess that we're in.
As we've reported, the budget is expected to be announced in less than 10 days. In yesterday's cabinet meeting, the ministers received the joint unions counter proposal and the PM, quote, approved the progression of discussion with the unions in good faith. Good faith, but not good feeling from the unions, which also questioned the rental of the Vista building on the Philip Golson Highway as a government office space for $7,000 a month or $84,000 annually. Surely government does need more office space, but this one has drawn scrutiny not only for the price but also because the owner of the building, Haissam Diab, is a longtime supporter and associate of the Prime Minister. In fact, for years when he was leader of the opposition, John Briceño's office was at the Charter House building, also owned by Diab. And now it's down to Vista, where unconfirmed reports suggest that the Prime Minister may have an office. APSSM President Sharon Fraser pointed out that the government is paying thousands of dollars in rent while the lay building, which is free, sits unused.
How can I say yes when in fact there is a contract I'm seeing paying $84,000 a year for 2 suites in a building on the highway? How can I say yes to 10%? What is the need for that when there is a lovely lane building, 3 stories, we have an elevator in it? Did you know elevator is in there, Marisol? Nice building by the sea. Then I'm hearing, although I can't confirm it, that the entire floor, 3rd floor of the Social Security building will be hired by government to house the additional persons that the Ministry of Finance or the Office of the Prime Minister will be putting there. How can I say yes to 10% when in fact that is there?
You can hear more on all that and the budget standoff tonight at 8 on Channel 7 on Uncut, when Jules Vasquez will speak with the key players from government and the unions. And coming up, we'll take you to the COVID unit at the KHMH, which for the past 8 days has been the COVID-free unit. And later on, you'll hear what the unions had to say to Public Service Minister Henry Charles Usher. Don't go away.
The COVID-19 pandemic, a safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace. It reduces the risk of infecting workers and visitors. An unhealthy workplace makes problems that are common to a pandemic even worse, such as increased workloads, longer working hours, isolation, domestic violence, stress, anxiety, and depression. On the other hand, a healthy workplace protects people, allows businesses to continue operations, and keeps communities healthy. You can do your part by following these steps. Wear a mask that covers your mouth and nose. Stay at least 6 feet away from others. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Look out for and follow all safety instruction signs. Stay at home and away from others if you feel ill. Speak up if you do not feel safe.
It takes all of us to slow the spread. A safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace.
For more information, visit www.covid19.bz. A message from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the National Trade Union Congress of Belize in collaboration with the International Labour Organization.
Electricity is an essential part of our daily lives. We use lights and household appliances every day. Therefore, we must ensure our homes are wired properly. At Benny's, we have certified wires with the right gauges and insulation. BEL certified meter sockets, authentic GE and square D panel boxes and breakers, which protect your electrical system from being overloaded. When wiring your home, avoid imitation brands which can be very dangerous. Give yourself and your family peace of mind using genuine electrical products available at Benny's. Quality and savings.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, two ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Congratulations to our Bellikin Papa's Topper winners today. Continue popping those toppers off of Bellikin for a chance to win free beer. $20, $100, or $1,000. Papa's Topper!
Bellikin, the beer of Belize.
My name is Janine and I live in Belize City. I've been a social worker for 2 years now. Social work is actually a difficult job. It takes a lot from you, not physically, but mentally. I went for an interview once for a job in dealing with youths at risk. And while in the interview, I was asked the question if I'm sure I wanted the job because it was dealing with troubled youths. And the interviewer looked at me and said, well, we would prefer a male for the job. I was hurt at first because I thought I was as qualified as the male to get the job. And it really stuck with me because then I thought, if I am as qualified, why wasn't I chosen? Why would you want to eliminate 50% of the workforce? People are supposed to be hired based on merit and not gender.
Durante la pandemia de la COVID-19, un lugar de trabajo seguro y saludable es un lugar de trabajo mejor. Esto reduce el riesgo de transmisión del virus entre trabajadoras, trabajadores y clientes. Los lugares de trabajo inseguros agravan los problemas durante la pandemia. Aumento de la carga de trabajo, jornadas laborales más largas, aislamiento, violencia doméstica, estrés, ansiedad y depresión. Trabajar de manera segura protege a las personas, permite seguir operando y mantiene a las comunidades saludables. Usted puede hacer la diferencia siguiendo los siguientes pasos: usando máscaras para cubrir boca y nariz, respetando el distanciamiento físico de 6 pies, lavándose las manos con jabón durante al menos 20 segundos, siguiendo instrucciones y señalización de seguridad y salud, quedándose en casa si está enfermo, diciéndolo si no se siente seguro.
It takes all of us to slow the spread. A safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace.
Para obtener más información, visite www.covid19.bz. Un mensaje de la Cámara de Comercio e Industria de Belice y el Congreso Nacional de Sindicatos de Belice en colaboración con la Organización Internacional del Trabajo.
One group, the UDP, wrote the long book on Belize's current economic disaster. One man wrote the final chapter, Dean Barrow. As we approach the 2021 budget, let us remember why Belize is messed up and broke, with 120,000 people looking for work. This new government will fix the Barrow UDP mess. Together, we will bounce back better.
Tonight, the KHMH's ICU remains patient-free. It's a new reality that, coupled with the hospital staff's 80% vaccine coverage, might make you think that the biggest health facility in the country is almost out of the COVID woods. But there are still 52 active cases in Belize, and many countries are in the deep throes of a third wave. So the relief right now, how may be an interim victory, but a victory nonetheless, proof that the country as a whole has made great strides in flattening the curve, proof that we saw in the empty beds at the COVID ICU today. Cherise Halsal reports.
This is the KHMH's COVID-19 isolation unit today. It's been 2 weeks since it saw its last COVID-19 death and 9 days since its last COVID-19 patient. And this morning, we headed to the National Referral Hospital to get its CEO's take on the successes that the hospital and the public at large are now able to celebrate.
It has been a long-awaited experience for us. But to look back, I can say that from the start of the year, we started with our numbers declining. We were at under 10 cases, and eventually it just continued to decline until we are without patients in our COVID isolation unit proper. The numbers countrywide clearly has gone down. The number of confirmed cases have been going down, a steady decrease in numbers. And of course, it has an impact on who ends up in the hospital. So, because who is admitted in our COVID isolation unit are usually cases that are confirmed and with moderate to severe symptoms of the COVID disease, no?
But while COVID numbers are down, that might only be temporary. And that's why the COVID ICU remains at the ready. And this afternoon, its unit manager told us about the constant preparations that have to be maintained if and when she and her team are called upon again.
When our last patient came out, we terminal the entire area. So we would terminal and wash the entire walls, wash all the equipment, the beds, they get a thorough wash everywhere. And that is done at least one time for the week, just to keep it clean and ready. Today we just did a terminal again, just in the event that we have a next patient that comes in, that we are fully ready. We notice that our machines, they're kept clean and covered down, and that's why you see them in the bags. So that we're just ready and always prepared for any patient that comes through the door at any point in time.
And once we reach that normalcy, there are other demands that could take precedent over a unit on permanent standby.
So what happens to the COVID isolation unit now? We heard rumors last week that it was being downsized.
So there are no staff members in the unit because there are no patients to manage, but the unit is just there waiting. Clearly, we cannot dismantle the unit until the country has declared and the world has declared that we are COVID-free, right? So in the we still need to prepare for whatever change in terms of the incidences or new cases that may pop up. The unit is a separate unit from other units in the hospital, so it's not taking away from any of our other service area, right? Because it's separate, it's dedicated for those types of cases, COVID management. So it's not disruptive, it's there, and we have intentions to maintain that for the future use, no? Other public health emergencies, other public health events, you never know.
And hopefully, this unit will stand as a relic to one of the darker chapters in Belize's public health history. But it's also a beacon of hope and a testament to the blood, sweat, and tears of the many nurses and doctors who fought against death and disease and have triumphed, at least for now. Cherise Halsell, 7 News.
The hospital is slowly restoring pre-COVID services with their specialist outpatient clinic returning to the premises. They've also just today reopened visiting hours and added an extra hour for one visitor at a time from 5 to 6 in the evening. And while activity in the COVID unit has ground to a halt, the emergency ward has been busy with trauma cases in the past 24 hours. 34-year-old Percival Pilgrim is in a critical condition tonight after he was fired upon while walking on Bannock Street this afternoon at 2:30. Pilgrim and a friend were headed towards the Lakeview area when they were approached by 2 men who shot at them. And while Pilgrim's friend was only grazed, he was shot to the head and left for dead in the middle of the street. Here's more from the shooting's chaotic scene this afternoon in Belize City.
These are the panicked moments after Percival Pilgrim was shot multiple times on Bannock Street. As he lay in the street bleeding from a headshot, we can see an adult run to protect small children running out of the yard where the shooting happened. Police responded almost immediately and blanketed the area. They rushed Pilgrim to the hospital, who, despite his injury, was still breathing. He was taken into emergency surgery. A 16-year-old victim was also grazed. Police believe the shooting is gang-related and that both victims are linked to the gang that controls this turf.
Police have detained 3 Bannock Street women and 1 man for questioning in relation to the shooting. All 4 persons are said to reside in the yard from which Pilgrim's assailants emerged. There are rival gangs at close proximity in this area. He was arrested in the afternoon for hosting an illegal gathering, but by 8 p.m. last night, 22-year-old Tyree Gentle was dead. Gentle was attacked while filling up a bucket in a friend's yard. He attempted to flee his assailant, but only got so far before being gunned down. Cherise Halsal went to the neighborhood today.
This is the yard on Elston Kerr Street where 22-year-old Tyree Gentle was fatally shot. He died right here under Verla Gordon's bedroom window, never even knowing the terror that his escape attempt and ultimate death visited upon her, her friends, and her 4-year-old son.
Me, this young man, our next man, made a socialize by my step there when we hear the first 2 shots and we run inside. We don't know when it took place. That when I done lock up in my house and come out after it don't happen, then I know that somebody get them the total.
I sit down by the step to eat, bring some food to she. I said gas done, so I bring some food and share the food in there and she. But then suddenly I hear a gunshot. Bow, 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 bow. Lot of shots, so I didn't take no shot. I run inside. The person, when you come, you probably have to come from that side. Apparently. Yeah, you never come this side. I come from some. 3 and 2 holes.
The cops say that Tyree had been in the company of a friend who lives at the corner of Pitter Street when he was approached by a gunman who fired at him. Tyree ran, but by the time he got to Gordon's yard, found himself face to face with yet another gunman who shot him to the head.
Well, I'm so frightened of fear for my life and my child life. I just dashed my baby inside, so I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened after that. And I crawl in for my hand and my knee, because I'm afraid. I'm a frightened moment for me. Frightened. Yeah, and I just lock up, I end up the strong in my bathroom and all the tremble. Sit down right in, literally sit down in it until when I hear people out here in the yard, and when I open my door, I see a lot of police there, and I still not going to see the young man because I'm still afraid.
Tyree's killer and his accomplice fled the scene toward Partridge Street in a white van. Cherise Halsal, 7 News.
Tyree Gentle was transported to the KHMH morgue where he was pronounced dead. Earlier on, you heard the unions questioning the Briceño government's political will to truly engage in cost-cutting measures. Well, one car dealership is questioning their tendering process for 6 new vehicles that are supposed to go to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. In a letter dated March 12th of 2021, Chad Dietrich, the managing director of Caribbean Motors, brought the matter to the attention of Contractor General Omar Mitchell. He writes, quote, "We are informed that they have selected, without going to tender, Belize Auto Zone to be the supplier of 6 Mazda pickup trucks with campers for a total sum of $357,000 or $59,000 each. We wish to bring to your attention that the bid process was not utilized. Therefore, in our belief, the selection of Belize Auto Zone is in contravention of good governance practices and fair play. We wish to point out that Belize Auto Zone is not an authorized vehicle dealer. They sell small auto parts, tints, and barbecue on Cemetery Road, Belize City, while our investment is substantial to provide after-sales support," end quote. Dietrich then goes on to state that they could have offered the government a better package. He says that all Caribbean Motors is asking for is that they be given an opportunity to make a bid in a fair manner as the law and good governance practices prescribe. We've since been provided with an internal memo from the Ministry of Finance to the Health Ministry dated March 11, 2021, from the Financial Secretary to the CEO in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. It approves the $357,000 contract to Belize Auto Zone, but warns that the Ministry of Finance should have been part of the evaluation committee. The background to all this is that the owner of Belize Auto Zone, Nigel Espat, is a part of the campaign team for Michelle Shabat, the Minister of Health and Wellness. Minutes before the start of our evening newscast, the Ministry of Health and Wellness sent out a press release to refute the allegations raised in the Chad Dietrich's letter. Their statement says, quote, in the letter, the said Caribbean Motors states that the bidding process was not followed in the procurement of 6 vehicles for the Ministry of Health and Wellness. This is a false statement that was intentionally made to undermine and to cause public disdain. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, through the Project Management Unit, obtained 7 quotations from different companies. Thereafter, the quotes were evaluated and recommendations made to the Ministry of Finance, who had no objection to the award of contract. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has followed all prescribed procedures in relation to the procurement process. It is unfortunate that Caribbean Motors, who has been the beneficiary of government contracts, would seek to defame the MOHW and denigrate a small Belizean business in this manner. End quote. We take a break now. When we come back, we'll have 2 sides of the dispute between the blue economy and the conservationists. Don't go away.
Un lugar de trabajo seguro y saludable protege a usted y a los suyos en su hogar. Todos debemos implicarnos y cumplir con las medidas para prevenir el contagio del virus. En el lugar de trabajo, practique siempre hábitos seguros y saludables y mantenga los lugares de trabajo limpios y desinfectados. Adapte las condiciones y métodos de trabajo para reducir el riesgo de contagio. Utilice correctamente y en todo momento el equipo de protección personal. Si no se siente seguro, dígalo. Su seguridad y salud es la prioridad. Los trabajadores de primera línea están expuestos a un mayor riesgo y necesitan una atención especial. Coopere y apóyelos.
It takes all of us to stop the spread. A safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace.
Para obtener más información, visite www.covid19.bz. Un mensaje de la Cámara de Comercio e Industria de Belice y el Congreso Nacional de Sindicatos de Belice, en colaboración con la Organización Internacional del Trabajo.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, 2 ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
A workplace that is healthy and safe protects you and those depending on you at home. Prevent the spread of COVID-19 at work by following these steps. Always practice safe and healthy habits, like keeping your work environment clean and disinfected. Adapt working conditions and methods to reduce the risk of infection. Use personal protective equipment properly at all times. Speak up if you do not feel safe, because your safety and health is the priority. Frontline workers are exposed to a higher risk and need particular attention. Cooperate with and support them.
It takes all of us to stop the spread. A safe and healthy workplace is a better workplace.
For more information, visit www.covid19.bz. A message from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the National Trade Union Congress of Belize in collaboration with the International Labor Organization.
Join us on Wednesday night on Uncut when our guests will be Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, Chris Coy, and the leaders of the three major unions, the BNTU, the PSU, and the APSSM. Will they accept a wage cut or will they go on strike?
Last night we told you how the Coalition for Sustainable Fisheries and Oceana Belize alleged that the Ministry of the Blue Economy appeared to be taking steps to reverse the ban on the use of gill nets in Belize. Well, the ministry is responding tonight to say that they are mistaken. On November 5, 2020, 6 days before the election, the former Minister of Fisheries, Omar Figueroa, signed Statutory Instrument 158 of 2020, which made it illegal to use gill nets. In a press release sent this morning, Minister Perez said that only days after taking office, he was greeted with a lawsuit from the Belize Fishermen's Cooperative Association, which is seeking to challenge the gill net ban. In response, Perez and his team sought legal advice and support from the Attorney General's ministry. He and the members of his team believed that this was the best way to proceed before engaging in any talks with the conservation community. Responding directly to the press release from Oceana and the Coalition, the ministry's press release says, quote, "We are open to having discussions with Oceana and the Coalition, but expresses its disappointment that they have hastily drawn conclusions and engaged in casting aspersions," end quote. The ministry thinks that this was an unfair attack on its integrity, and so the minister and his team hosted a 40-minute press conference this afternoon to take questions from the press. Here's how that extended conversation went.
This ministry, from the onset, has been in consultation with countless partners because our vision is based on a multi-sectoral approach to the blue economy. As a matter of fact, Oceana was one of the first organizations that we met with and we sought to establish a relationship with. So much so that the minister informed them that he wanted another meeting to discuss just gill net bans. As fate would have it, exactly the day before that meeting, the minister received the notice of the lawsuit. On the advice of our legal counsel, we were asked not to engage in any discussions related to the gill net ban. And obviously, as everyone knows, that instruction was very important and we needed to follow it. However, we ensured that we informed Oceana of the lawsuit, and we also informed them of the instructions that we had received from the Attorney General's office. This was a few days after the minister had assumed his position as minister. Of course, Christmas came around and everything pretty much went on a go slow. And then we started again our discussions with the Attorney General's office. We were once again informed not to discuss. At some point, we decided it was time, and only fair that we be transparent as well with Oceana and with the Coalition. And we asked for permission to meet with Oceana, and I did. I met with 3 persons and shared in a most transparent way what was transpiring. Obviously, we believe as a ministry that our partners are key to the success of the blue economy, but we cannot and we will not allow that false information be shared or misinformation be shared that can smear the name of a ministry that is really seeking in the best ways possible and has been hailed already as an example for the region.
To say these things that we do not want to engage with them, or that we are getting rumors of about saying that we're going to lift up a ban on gill net fishing is untrue. In fact, is that we have always advocated for this, that we will always work together, but at the same time that we must take into consideration the Belizeans, the fishing community, that they cannot be forgotten. And based on that, it defines what the blue economy is all about. It's working with everyone involved, not only the fishing community, and that we recognize that the NGOs themselves, we find common ground, that we have many shared objectives. And that is why I want to make clear that this press release that the coalition at Ocean has released is unfortunate, that we did not have to go that way. We almost band together, we almost work together. We must focus ahead and remain engaged. And we from the blue economy plan to lead that way. We cannot allow ourselves to be dragged down by other different interested partners who would want to take the lead in this. It is important that we recognize that the blue economy, the Ministry of Blue Economy must take that lead, and that is what we intend to do. To say that we are under some kind of secretive talks that we want to lift up this ban is not true. What we're trying to do is find common ground, what is important. That while we acknowledge that the NGOs have assisted us by offering financial compensation to the fisher folks or the fishing community, there is someone out there who says that they have been left behind. But we have nothing to do with that. But if there is someone out there who feels that they have been disenfranchised by this gillnet ban, this is every right of a Belizean. If you feel that your rights have been violated, they have a right to seek redress in court.
This afternoon's extended press conference was the first opportunity we got to ask about this lawsuit from the fisher folks who want the gillnet ban lifted. This afternoon, the officials made it clear that there is a bit of confidentiality surrounding these mediation talks, but here's what they told us about the lawsuit.
We know that there is this lawsuit and you've been given certain instructions to follow, but if you can share what is the objective of the claimants?
So with regards to the lawsuit and the claimants, there are really three main things that are being sought. One of them is for the repeal of the ban on gillnets. And the second thing is for us to allow for any eligible fisherman to be able to fish with gillnets. And the third item for the claimants is one for compensation of loss incurred by fishers as a result of the ban on gillnet.
Is there at this time a final position that the government and the ministry is taking on this lawsuit? Will it be settled out of court? Will it be litigated? What's happening on at that front?
We don't have a position on that. We cannot talk about what we've done so far with the mediation. What I can tell you, Danielle, is that we are expected to return back to court on March 30th. And at that juncture, we would have a position whether or not we were able to come to an agreement or whether or not the case will proceed to the courts.
Representatives of Oceana and the coalition are taking the view that these same claimants have raised some of these issues in the past and that your ministry may not be fully aware of how they've engaged these claimants, because they're suggesting that the many years of consultation that took place, the same particular group of stakeholders was engaged and that your ministry would benefit from their notes.
I would not say that the ministry is approaching this matter from an ignorant standpoint. The ministry has information. We're being guided by our legal counsel in the Office of the Attorney General. I think secondly, though, whether or not these matters have been raised in the past by the claimants or by fishers, they have a constitutional right to challenge anything that the government of Belize have put into place that they believe have led to them being disenfranchised in any way. It is our responsibility from the government and to have those discussions with them to see if we could reach some agreement. And I want to say that it is very much inaccurate to say that the government is going into these mediations blinded. We are not, but we have a responsibility to now go into these mediations with all information, and we do have all information.
About 2 hours before the ministry called its press conference, the leaders of Oceana, Belize and the Coalition for Sustainable Fisheries called its own press engagement to explain why they fired the first shot at the government on this gillnet ban issue. Here's what they had to say in response to the government's insistence that their press release was unfair and preemptive.
First, let's start off by saying that we completely recognize and are cognizant of just how busy everybody in government is right now. There are conversations happening at multiple levels. Things will get lost in translation. But what really brought about the press release that you saw yesterday was a conversation last week with CEO Carrillo from the ministry, who conveyed that in response to a lawsuit that had been filed, the ministry was moved to alter the ban, and that there was only one point that they were not moved to acquiesce to. So we felt it imperative as Oceana to share then that that would have ramifications, particularly and immediately, to the fishers currently benefiting from the transitional support, as well as the wider community, because certainly the fact that an inherently dangerous and destructive gear is out of the water benefits far more people than just the immediate beneficiaries of the transition program. So we reiterate, we want to have that meeting. We think once that conversation is had and everything that we are aware of that went into this, you all know, you must be tired of us talking about gill nets. It's been a very long conversation over a number of years. We've gone through every hurdle in place. And once we have that conversation, that the ministry will be fully updated and informed in terms of everything that is in place.
Lawsuit proceeds. What happens to the funding? Does it continue? Does it stop?
I can say from the coalition, we have the $1 million that we raised has been distributed in its entirety to the fishers. This was again a process of well over a year, about a year and a half. That money has been distributed, and so there is we will not be seeking that money back from the fishers. We will say that right out. As for Oceana, they will have to answer the question from there.
So on the Oceana's million, we are dispersing the payments monthly to the fishers over a 24-month period. In the agreements we signed, we did assert that if the government lifted the ban, those payments would stop, and that those monies would then revert to the donors. It does not stay in country, it immediately gets reverted to the donors.
Representatives from Oceana tell 7 News that there are two possible reasons why these aggrieved fishermen did not benefit from the $2 million projects to transition away from gill nets. The first reason is that they did not have an active and valid license to fish in Belize. The second possible reason is that the Fisheries Department failed to include them on the list of licensed fishermen. We are told that at the very beginning of the talks on a possible gill net ban, Oceana made a request to the Fisheries Department for a list of all the licensed fishermen under the Freedom of Information Act. They say that the Fisheries Department furnished them with that list, and they made sure to engage all the fishermen listed. Earlier, we brought you the counter proposal that the unions put forward to the government on Monday. Their firm position was driven home by yesterday's simultaneous motorcades across the country organized by the BNTU. But we also showed you the public service minister mocking their efforts, encouraging them to use the gas so that the government can collect more taxes. Today, we asked BNTU President Elena Smith her thoughts on his comments.
I think sometimes when we see arrogance, we fail to remember that it leads us nowhere. And so that might be his perspective, and he may feel that because he's in power right now, that whatever actions we take might have no effect. In his view, we know that as unions, when we stand up and we decide that we are going to take on any issue, that we go all the way. We are aware of that. And so if the minister feels that our job yesterday, or what we did yesterday, was a waste of time, time will tell. That's I will say, time will tell.
The BNTU chose a motorcade as a form of protest to observe the COVID protocols and thus ensuring that new cases remain low. Today, there were 7 new cases reported and 10 new recoveries. And while the COVID unit is COVID-free, 1 patient is still hospitalized. Here were also 10 new recoveries reported and no new deaths. Information Officer Claudette Decas-Norales has the full breakdown.
A total of 497 samples were tested. Out of this, 7 samples have resulted positive for COVID-19. There are 10 new recoveries to report. Today, we also report that 1 infected person is hospitalized. We have no one in the intensive care unit and no new deaths to report. The cumulative report we are presenting is from March 2020 when we had our first case. The new total of active cases now stands at 52. These are those persons who have been confirmed and are within the time frame to transmit the virus. To date, 92,274 samples have been tested nationally. Out of this, 12,396 samples have resulted positive for COVID-19. There are 70 individuals newly under investigation. A total of 316 deaths have been reported, but we are pleased to report that there are 12,020 total recoveries. The heat map shows the districts mostly affected. The greatest number of cases is seen in the Cayo district. Cayo district reported 4 new cases spread throughout the district. Belize, Orange Walk, and Stand Creek districts reported 1 new case each, with Orange Walk Town, Belize City, and Independence responsible for 1 case each. Corozal and Toledo districts had no new case.
And that's all we have for you on our newscast for tonight. Thanks for watching. With your news, I'm Indira Craig. Remember that you can read a full transcript of this news at 7newsbelize.com and see streaming video of this newscast on our Facebook page. Remember now to wash those hands, wear a mask at all times in public, and keep your social distance. The curfew starts at 10 tonight, so please stay inside. Make sure to join me back here tomorrow at 6, and until then, have a great night.